Okay, so we've just gotten through the portfolio subject selection, and as I've been emphasizing, that's an important part of the portfolio process because it will provide your subject matter moving forward from here out for your portfolio projects. Overall, I think everybody had really good choices for their portfolio subjects. I didn't see any that had any red flags really. A really good, diverse selection of subjects. And of course, that will determine all the different ways that you approach your projects based on the subject matter. As far as overall comments that I had, a few that may not apply to you with the instructional design company, although it might, um, is that if they are existing companies and they have already established brand aspects like logos and signage and colors and so forth, um, at some point in the process you will need to create new logos and new branding, and so you aren't bound by what's already been established by these companies, but you can draw from the existing material for inspiration. So it's leveraging your expertise as a media professional, and applying what you know in order to better represent the company. So you're free to create that as you please. And since we're not presenting this to the subject itself, unless you want to, you have complete creative freedom to rebrand them as you see necessary. However, you see best represents um, their nature and their personality and their goals. Are there any questions as far as the portfolio subject goes? Okay, good, good. Um, so the next portion would be to define the target audience for your subject. And as an instructional designer, you are familiar with the importance of knowing your target audience. I touched on this last week a bit because the target audience will determine the nature of your media, then the construction of your message, from the tone of voice to the wording that you use, possibly even the language that you use. In defining your target audience this week, you're going to provide some basic demographics. The list that I have here, and this is the same list that's in the assignment, is the most common demographic factors. And I like to emphasize that not all of these are going to be relevant to every subject. So use your best judgment to decide what is important to your particular portfolio subject. Odds are ethnicity isn't going to matter. Gender might not matter. Occasional comments I see for this assignment are, we don't discriminate based on ethnicity, and that's not what this is about. It's not saying that, well, we're not going to cater to a particular ethnicity. It's just knowing who your customer base is. For example, I've had a subject chosen that was a Latin music performer, and clearly their core audience is going to be Latin speaking public. But then if you know that, and that would define the core audience, but then knowing that, say they wanted to expand outside of that audience, then that would inform their efforts to create media that would appeal to a wider audience. Just as an example, so some of these factors: age range, marital status, profession, even income level and level of education, as well as hobbies and interests. So if you have a subject that deals with a particular hobby or interest, like I see electronic gaming pop up pretty frequently, then the audience would be the enthusiasts for that particular hobby. But look at what particular factors are relevant to your subject. I know in your case you're doing an instructional design firm, And so your audience is probably going to be those people who are seeking instructional media to be developed. Usually that's going to be other companies that are going to contract to have training developed on a particular topic or a particular software or something along those lines. So then you think about, okay, so who then are the decision makers that I need to communicate to in order to draw more interest in the service that my subject has to offer. Occasionally, there are subjects that have more than one audience. For example, I've had a subject that was an organization that that helped abused women, like a abused women's shelter. In that case, you have, and it was a charity, so you have one audience that is the women themselves, those who are seeking the services that are offered, and the other audience would be people who are donating to those charities. And those are two very different audiences with very different needs and requirements as far as how we would communicate to them. And so in that case, you would give some information on both of those possible audience segments. Some other factors to touch on are how they communicate, both in terms of what mediums they use to communicate and channels, as well as the tone of voice they use and the kind of language they use. Or would your subject probably appeal or respond better to a more formal and business-like tone, or are they more casual? Are they, are they video gamers that are going to be using a lot of slang and video game jargon? And also, where are they communicating with each other? Would you need to go to online communities to reach them? Or is TV the best channel? How do they communicate? And then what are their needs? What are their wants? And how does your subject address those needs and wants? And what makes them special? What makes them stand out? Do you have any thoughts or questions so far? Okay. So at this point in the program, you haven't gotten into the research courses as yet. So I'm not asking for any kind of empirical research to be done on your audience at this point. But I would like to see some critical thought put into it. One thing I don't want to see is for you to say that my audience includes everyone from age, 11 to 99, because that's far too general. It's almost certainly inaccurate because there's I can't think of a particular subject that would appeal to that wide of an audience range. And also, you're not going to talk to those individuals in the same way. An 11-year-old child has a different level of sophistication from a middle-aged adult, and it's just not going to work in the same way. So really put some thought and effort into figuring out who this audience would be, and go online and do some searching. You can usually find statistics. If not for your particular subject, then for something in that industry. For example, I had a student that was doing a skateboarding magazine as their subject. And it was sort of an up-and-coming publication. And what I found is that, of course, you probably won't find who their particular readers are, but you could look and see who the skateboarders are, who are the enthusiasts, and figure out the age range, and that they're mostly male, but there's kind of a growing number of girls who are getting into skateboarding. And so it really informs your strategy, your media strategy in that way. So getting on Google and doing some searches, using keywords that are related to your subject and the particular industry that they're in can really reveal some good information. There are a few other resources that I would recommend that may or may not be relevant depending on the nature of your subject. And they are the US Census, which is good if you have a geographically specific subject. So if, for example, my subject was specifically catering to residents of Winter Park, Florida, I could go on the US Census Facts and look up Winter Park and see what the demographic makeup is, from the age breakdown, ethnicity breakdown, income levels, and so on. It's all in there. So potentially valuable information there. Pew Research and Nielsen Research both do media-based research. So they do studies and surveys to find out who's consuming what types of media. And so they have some good information. This is a screenshot from the census for Winter Park. So you see a little bit of what it has to offer, and that's the age range. Pew Research does a study every year on the use of social media as one example. So they have a breakdown for all the major social media outlets. They have a lot of other studies as well that are related to different aspects of media consumption. So getting on there and doing some searches if if you have a media related subject, that can turn up some good details. And this actually should say Nielsen. I need to change that title, but this is a screenshot from a Nielsen study related to electronic music. So, and they have many different media. You might recognize Nielsen as the Nielsen ratings that focus on TV viewing habits. And so these are a few that I recommend. They are linked under the assignment if they look like they would be relevant to you. In your case, Javier, I don't think any of those might be particularly of value, but I'm sure there's somewhere online you can find some information. There's some very good instructional design and training resources out there, particularly the eLearning Guild. If you haven't checked them out yet, are worth a look. That's an organization that I used to follow pretty closely. Okay, yeah. And in a call. Gotcha. So that is where we're at. Do you have anything I could help clear up? Okay, well, great.